So the white layer that I had on the file, I took and I made opaque 100%. I duplicated the armature layer, brought it up above the white layer, turned it down to 10%, erased out inside of the clothing area so I don't have all the competing edges. And this is what we basically have. It's almost finished, right? It's so close to finished. We just have to clean things up for the most part. And that's what the opaque render layer is for. It's for us to come in here and make changes to things just in the edges where changes need to be made. But we don't have to repaint the whole thing. It's basically coming back around and cleaning things up. Just fixing stuff for the most part. Like right along in here, softening these edges just a little bit more, and maybe softening them down just a little bit more through here. Maybe even darkening this whole space down just a little bit. Just a little bit more. So that there's greater contrast between the two. And then this edge is the turning of an edge. No, actually, that's probably a JPEG artifact. Let's just leave that alone. Don't touch it. Then we have along here a softer edge. I'm going to go ahead and soften that edge up a little bit. And then across here, there's all sorts of little tiny folds. Now you can put these in if you want to be that detail oriented to the image, or you can leave most of them out and just put a couple in there to indicate that there is some complex detail going on in there, some complex surface. Little tiny areas of detail definitely lend a hand to the overall impression of the picture. So by no means should you leave out those little things, but you don't need to put all of them back in either. And you can put them in at different values. Here's just a little bit darker, and this won't compete with the rest of the areas at all. And then in here, there's an occlusion. An occlusion is the darker space in the shadow where no light can reach. We're going to go ahead and add that in. This pipe fold along here has a much stronger definition to it over on this side, which means that for the most part, the entire sleeve is a little bit darker along this inside edge. And where it's not, it's a fold crossing over. And we just need to illuminate again by painting into it a little bit lighter where the lightness is, and a little darken where the darkness is, naturally. Along here, this plane is facing upwards, so it is going to be receiving a bit more light. I'm going to open up the light by about a half a value to almost a full value in there. And I'm going to reserve that value for other places that are facing towards that light source in the same way. I'm going to be very limited in where I put it, and it's always on the top surface of something that's facing upward. Like along here, this part is going to be facing upward more than this part is going to be facing forward, and I illustrated it incorrectly over here on this edge, or else you would understand that. That's what I meant. Okay, so then in here, it's a little bit lighter up to this point and along here. And then it gets darker and it softens up back in there. And then there's another occlusion way back in there. The deepest part of that fold where less light is lighting up that space. All of a sudden, rendering has made me more cautious. And we continue this same process all over until every fold we need is illustrated to the degree that we need it illustrated. Like along in here, do we want to highlight this pipe fold even further, which is actually turned more this way? Do we want to darken this side down just a little bit more to sharpen the edge? Do we want to soften the edge between the transition of the flat surface in there and where it's ascending along here? Do we want to open up this edge of the shadow a little bit more and close it down up towards the top, reinforcing the tension point where its origin is, and then do the same thing with all the other ones by sharpening the right side instead of the left side, making each one of them go from soft on the left to sharp on the right. Form shadows. And then do the same thing with all of these folds up along in here and over in here. And then some of the folds that are over in this place right along in here. And do the same thing with them. I'm going to turn the form up here. I'm going to bring this down more around here. There is a small linking fold there connecting these two pipe folds into each other. And that will be one of those edges as well that I will take the lighter value and illuminate just a small portion of it right along over in here. Let all of this get darker on this side as it's rolling into that pipe fold. Fix this edge because it's a little too sterile and static. Do the same thing with these edges here, lighten them up a little bit. And what little bits I'm doing here and there are really helping enhance the visual experience as far as the dimensions are concerned, giving a greater amount of dimension to all these little spaces. And it's just now the translation of soft edge, form shadow, versus hard edge, cast shadow. And all of them have that, every single one of them, as simple and as lit as everything is, and as soft as all of those lit areas are, there's still a logic to the top and the bottom of every single one of these folds. Now in areas like over here where this sleeve rounds out even further, I can either go with a slightly lighter value in the very middle of the cylinder, which means all the mid spaces of all of these folds are going to get lighter, and then above and below that will get darker. See, like darker up that way, darker down that way, and then do the same thing along here. Go lighter in the very middle and then go darker down below and lighter up above. And it's just softening these edges into each other so that it isn't ending so abruptly along that edge. Go softer all along the top there. Go a little bit lighter through here. A little bit darker underneath there. Light up to that edge and sharpen it. A little bit darker on the underside of that. And then it's also clean up on the outside edge, making sure that all of these areas fit properly and are the correct stiffness, sharpness, firmness, whatever you want to label them, the edges of all of these folds, however you deem them. That's what we're trying to do, is just make sure that those folds read in their proper value and their proper construction. And both of those things together equal an easy picture for the audience to translate. Softer edges over here and so forth. Now, I've been working on another file this whole time. The file that I'm going to turn in with all of these different layers already built out. And I'm going to just work on just a tiny bit more here, clean up just a few more edges. But for the most part, I think this is good enough to share as an example of where you're going to be going with your own homework, hopefully. And if it's not, then please notify me and I will walk you through whatever else might be a little confusing here. But this would be taken to a much greater finish, of course. I don't want to take all of your time and make this demonstration a lengthy one. I think you understand between last week and this week what we're doing with this stage. And it's just a matter now, because this is the opaque layer, it's just cleaning things up and massaging them back into an orderly finish. And everything at this stage is nothing more than a gradation. Whether it's a gradation to a harder edge or a gradation to a softer edge, it's nothing more than a gradation. So everything's much, much easier to access now in these last stages. And to the degree that you want to detail and render them, I don't expect these renderings to be like Louvre quality finishes here, but I certainly want you to take a little bit more time and make these renderings appealing, because you are trying to learn the whole process of this figuring out how folds work. It's not just doing the understructure and you're done. It's actually figuring out the rendering as well. So, okay, so now what I'm going to do here is back up. Again, look how clean everything reads. And the more we render all of these little areas, the more finished everything starts to look. I'm going to go up to the very top layer that's visible. I'm going to go Control-Shift-Alt-E, duplicate the file, copy, bring this in, paste, paste. She's the last of my files here, and I made the file the wrong size. I didn't realize that until after I put it together, but that's okay. I'm continuing to do this manual labor anyway, because it's important to do this work. All of this extra work is what you are always going to be doing as an illustrator. All of the hardcore manual labor is up to you. It's not up to anybody else but you. And I'm getting used to the process of industry. Industry is key here. If I can keep the industry solid, then I can keep myself in business. But I can't get lazy, and that's why you really have to think about this stage of rendering and how far you're going to take it. But do you notice here, altogether, I think it took for this video, for the rendering part of it, about 45 minutes, maybe 50 minutes altogether. That's between the armature, actually less than that, about 40 minutes, between the armature and where we are over here in the cleanup stage, which I'm going to type in there, cleanup stage. It took about 40 minutes. So, clean up stage, render to finish with most layers ghosted out. All right, and you organize them in this particular fashion so that I can see all of your thoughts. Now, why are we working this hard towards this? First and foremost, I want to make sure that you understand that everything has an orderly process, and if you work quickly, things get done quickly. It does not take all day to render something, but you do have to understand how that thing works. You have to understand it completely through and through. If any part is confusing to you, then you get lost. And once you get lost, you render things that aren't necessary, or you do things that are not necessary that actually break down the productivity. Armature first. Make it very basic. But on that armature, putting in the anatomical nuances that are influencing the folds, including the breast shapes, the crotch, whatever else, if it's male, female, whatever. The action lines of the drapery and the body of the drapery itself. I forgot to put the lines in over here. There should be some on the elbow that I forgot. But everything that is draped on the figure or added to the figure, minus the rings on the hands, has some kind of basic outline around it corresponding with the armature. And it has action lines corresponding with the folds of the body or the bends within the body that are creating folds within the material. The next is construction of the folds, and as I create each of these layers, I ghost out the previous layers so that they do not get in the way and obstruct the view. The construction is easy to see on top of the body. Then I take the construction and ghost it back and create the notans. This time I used a lasso tool. Please do for yourself as well. Then the gradient stage, which is also a part of the shadow pattern stage. Let me type that in here really quick. This is shadow pattern stage and gradient stage. Both of those are sort of added together here. Didn't realize I did that again. And then finally the cleanup stage. And the cleanup stage, remember what I did, go back in the video and watch how I whited out most of the layers and brought up the armature so that the armature fills in the negative spaces. That way it's not the invisible woman. And then the drapery has been rendered up to a finish, which didn't take very much longer, using that white layer and the lasso tool to complete the shapes completely as shapes and not as just a bunch of random brush strokes. Things got done really fast. Between this stage and this stage right here, it took about maybe 10 to 15 minutes altogether. This stage took longer because it requires rendering for a little bit, and this is what brought it to about 40 minutes. And then putting it all together is another about 5 to 10 minutes. But it's easy if you keep everything broken down in layers. So, and that's going back to this file, keeping everything broken down in layers. It makes it very simple to dissect and put together this way. And again, this is my way of seeing how you're thinking. I can't watch you work. And that's what's missing from these online experiences. I don't get to watch you do what you do. And so I cannot correct any of your habits. Your habits are a part of your staging of a drawing and all the different layers that you put together. Without me being able to see the stages of your drawing and having a very deliberate cutoff point, I won't know how you think about things. And that's why I'm having you do this. Now, everybody should be doing this, but I don't think a lot of people think about this because we really are only critiquing the end result. But for me, if I'm teaching you foundation, I want to make sure that I get to every part of what you do because most of your habits are in these stages right over here, not this one. This one already has habits attributed to it, and you're rendering those habits to completion, but the habits were formed over in these preliminary stages. And this is where I want to catch all of you so that we can fix everything and make your drawing experience the best that it can be. All right. Homework is 5 different poses. 5 different poses that you're going to turn in, but you're doing 10 drawings altogether. And the 5 poses that you're going to turn in complete to render are going to be 1 tight fit clothing on a female form, 1 loose fit clothing on a female form, 1 short skirt, 1 long dress, and then 1 of any above from the back view or side view for a total of 5 renders. But I want 10 drawings altogether on the 3rd page, and I want different versions of each of these so that I see you're practicing them and you're trying to figure out which ones you're going to take to completion. But 10 of them so that you get the practicing. All right, everybody, good luck with your homework. I'll see you next week. Take care.